In 2004, there was such a film. The two main characters do not have a single line of dialogue throughout the film. There are no war scenes, yet it still achieved a high score of 9.1, surpassing 98% of romance and war films. Many people, only after watching it, understood what the pinnacle of true love really is. At the beginning of World War II, the German army occupied France. Jean, an ordinary piano teacher, for the first time saw enemy soldiers who should have been on the battlefield right at her front door. "Your house will be requisitioned. A German officer will live here. This is the requisition order. Please lead me to see the bedroom." These words meant the motherland had fallen. They had become prey to be torn apart at will by others, and prey never has the right to speak. "This room is not possible. This is my parents' room. It is this room. I want to see it." Faced with the opponent's dominance, Jean, though angry, could only step forward and open the door to the room. This was the room of her deceased parents. They had died in the war against the Germans. After a moment of observation, the soldier informed her that this room would be requisitioned. Having said that, he went downstairs, ordering his subordinate to start moving the commander's belongings. Jean's face became grim. She put away the photograph of her parents and the flowers beside it, then slammed the door to vent the dissatisfaction in her heart. "You must prepare blankets and towels for the captain. Very beautiful. The captain is very fond of flowers." Late at night, Jean and her grandfather were still not asleep. The anger from the day gradually turned into anxiety. They did not know when the captain would arrive, nor did they know what unreasonable demands the other might make. To ease the tension, Jean placed her hands on the piano keys and began to play her favorite piece by Bach. The magnificent notes resounded, winding, causing the footsteps of the man who had known years of smoke and fire outside to stop immediately. After a long while, that person opened the door, stepping in gently. And upon seeing that beautiful face, beneath the calm exterior were vibrations that flashed like lightning. Noticing the tension and unhappiness of the grandfather and granddaughter, the captain first introduced himself, then expressed his apology. "I feel very sorry. If I could choose, I would not have come here. I was ordered to live here." As a victorious invader, the opponent's gentleness was unexpected. But an enemy is still an enemy. Jean silently stood up and led him to the room. Before the captain could say thank you, she had already hastily slammed the door and left. The next morning, the grandfather and granddaughter were chatting cheerfully, but upon seeing the captain preparing to go out for work, their faces immediately turned cold. The captain saw it in their eyes, but still saluted and said a good morning. As a conqueror, in his eyes there was no arrogance or self-satisfaction. On the contrary, they were filled with sadness and a hint of expectation. He awaited a response from that girl, longed to hear her voice. But a light brush on the shoulder reminded him that between them there was a distance, the enmity of nation and family like a dividing abyss. A warrior who frequently fights on the battlefield can also have a mind as delicate as water. In order not to affect the lives of the grandfather and granddaughter, the captain always went out very early and came home very late. Compared to an invader, he was more like an older brother. Besides the daily good morning and good evening, he also kindly reminded, "It seems the weather is about to turn. The sea waves are very high." He told Jean not to prepare food for him. He could eat with the army. At night, there was no need to leave the door open. He could enter his room from the side door. After waiting a moment, there was still the cold silence. The captain was not angered by this. He knew this was their way of preserving their last dignity. Through the window, seeing that somewhat sad silhouette, a warm current flowed into her heart. That piece by Bach was also his favorite piece of music. Besides teaching every day, Jean would occasionally ride her bicycle to her cousin's farm to buy some milk. After learning about the captain, her cousin invited her to stay at his house. But the petty thoughts of others, how could she not know? After a tactful refusal, she hurriedly left. When it comes to love, every girl has expectations, and Jean was no exception. But she did not know that compared to a love as fierce as fire, her love was as silent as the sea, all the more moving to the heart. Due to a food shortage, Jean went to town to receive relief supplies. An accidental turn, she saw that handsome face just in time to nod in greeting. Jean was always cold to him, but this could not help but make her heart flutter. Still not calm from the panic, she discovered her bicycle had vanished. Walking all the way home, Jean's feet had many blisters. But upon hearing a sound outside, she forgot all the pain, hurriedly standing up and walking towards the living room, as if rushing to a special appointment. The captain, returning late, stopped at the door, suddenly realizing that the captivating sound of the piano seemed not to have been heard for a long time. Stepping into the room, he hesitated for a long time before nervously reaching for the brim of his hat, crossing that threshold for the first time. As usual, the captain still greeted politely, reminding that the weather outside was very cold. Seeing no reaction from the other, he gathered his courage and took a few more steps into the room. With a light sadness, he said he liked France very much. Regarding the Franco-German War, he felt even more indignant. His father had died in the hail of bullets. Whether a French family or a German family, who does not lose a loved one in war? I have great respect for people who love their homeland. Having said these things, the captain bowed his head in salute, then turned to leave. And how could Jean not know? Only war is truly cruel. Each side has a country and loved ones to protect. It's been a long time since I heard you play the piano. With him there, I don't play. Without a bicycle, Jean could only choose to walk to work. As she was sitting down to rest, the familiar car passed in front of her and then stopped abruptly. "Miss, may I invite you into my car?" Jean said nothing. She bent down to pick up the bag on the ground, walking straight ahead. The captain smiled gently, carefully hiding the joy in his heart. The gentleman politely opened the car door for her, but the girl silently brushed past his arm. Through the car window, her beautiful face radiant under the sun, so close yet unreachable. After finishing her piano lesson, because her feet were truly in pain, and by chance meeting her cousin who was out shopping, Jean decided to ask for a ride. All along the way, the cousin flirted ceaselessly, which made Jean feel as if she were sitting on pins and needles. At least in this respect, the man at home did better. That evening, the captain passed by the door, but unlike before, he did not come in to say hello. This made Jean, who had been waiting for a long time, feel a little disappointed. But very quickly, the captain had changed into civilian clothes and reappeared at the door. "Excuse me, my room is very cold. If you don't mind, I would like to come a little closer to warm up for a few minutes." Jean's grandfather turned his head to look. He had no intention of refusing. The captain's footsteps were very light. He walked past Jean, who was pretending not to notice, and squatted down beside the fireplace. He was still talking to himself, very warm. "At this moment, I feel as if I am at home. My home certainly has a warm fireplace too." Jean in the mirror stared blankly at this man who frequented the battlefield. He must be homesick. He walked over to the bookshelf on his own accord, in the girl's no longer indifferent eyes, as if telling of family heirlooms. He named these French authors. One could tell that he truly loved those works. It was not until he was beside the piano that the captain, with an admiring expression, revealed a look of regret. It turned out he too had been a musician, but the war had stained his hands with blood. He very much wanted to play a piece, both for her and for himself. But out of politeness and respect, he still said a good night and then hurried away. Such a long monologue is unbearable. I wasn't paying attention. You cannot offend a person, even if he is the enemy. The ones who are hurt are us. We do not have the right to choose. Though still stubborn, Jean did not realize the enemy before her was gradually eroding her coldness with his gentleness, strength, and character, silently devouring her coldness. Without knowing since when, she even began to want to understand him. And so from a little boy's mouth, she learned his name. It turned out his name was Werner. Jean could no longer read a book quietly in the living room. She would always unconsciously look towards the door as if waiting for something. And when the sound of the door opening that she longed for was heard, beneath her calm exterior was a strongly suppressed joy and happiness. The captain entered the room, still the salute and the greeting. Only different from before was that he no longer asked for the opinion of the grandfather and granddaughter, but naturally walked to the fireplace. It seemed that in this moment, he was the one who was supposed to belong here. "The reason I like the sea is because of its silence. I am not talking about the waves, but something else. I am very happy to be able to meet an old man with dignity and a silent girl." Yes, he loved the sea, loved its silence. Jean remained silent, not saying a word, just as the ocean is always calm and a good listener. When meeting the captain's occasional gaze, Jean's heart beat even faster. It was not until that person stood up to leave that she spoke, her eyes filled with tears. "Why does he look at me like that? Take the wood out of the fire, don't let it burn away for nothing." On this Christmas day, Jean had redone her hair, put on beautiful makeup, and changed into a dress altered from her mother's clothes. After refusing her grandfather's invitation to an event, she sat alone by the fireplace, as if waiting for a grand encounter. Tilting her head slightly, she saw that man indeed appear behind her, extending his hand to gently pat the back of the chair she sat on. A rare chance to be alone. Countless words suppressed in her heart came to her lips, but in the end only one sentence remained. "How beautiful the night is." He gently opened the piano lid, mentioning their first meeting, the Bach piece she played, telling her that it was also his favorite piece of music. She did not turn around, but her eyes were filled with a soft affection and an anxiety that was hard to conceal. It was not until the sound of the piano rose, new notes slowly flowing, sweeping away those worries, turning into a warm current that seeped into her soul. She stood with her back to him, her lips, without her knowing when, had slightly curved up, and her hidden feelings surged in the sound of his piano. It was this Christmas, the best gift she had ever received. When the piano suddenly stopped, the joy in those eyes began to gradually turn into anticipation. but those large hands still could not cross the deep abyss between the two of them. "Merry Christmas to you." Watching that person turn and leave, sadness also surged forth. Jean gathered all her courage, for the first time stepping into the captain's room, then closing the door. A letter came into view. Out of curiosity, she sat by the bed and read it carefully. It turned out to be just a family letter sent from his mother. She surely understood the captain's heart, and for that, she felt happy and lucky that the person she liked also loved her. Only she could not respond. As her grandfather had said, only by taking the wood out of the fire can it be prevented from burning away for nothing. In a drowsy moment, she unexpectedly fell into a deep sleep. It was not until the captain returned home that she was awakened by the sound of the engine downstairs. Panicked, she picked up the letter to place it back outside, but unexpectedly, the draft from closing the door silently blew the letter away. As he passed Jean's room, the captain paused his steps. They had never thought that just one door between them was like a deep abyss. Returning to his room, the captain also discovered the family letter on the floor, and looking at the no longer tidy bed, his mind understood everything. Therefore, at that beach, on the wooden bridge wide enough for only one person to pass, he blocked Jean, who had just bought fish and was preparing to return. In her panic, the basket of fish spilled onto the ground. He took off his gloves to help her pick up the fish. But the averted gaze and the deliberately avoiding hand made him understand that no matter how much they liked each other, they could never walk side by side on this wooden bridge. After returning home, still not recovered from the recent encounter, the annoying cousin came to find her, wanting to invite her to a dance. Jean refused as always, but unexpectedly the other became angry out of shame, intending to do something unlawful. The captain heard the noise and kicked the door in. The sight before him made his eyes turn cold for the first time. The cousin felt scared and could only leave resentfully. He walked past Jean's side but did not offer any words of comfort. He had no reason, and even less the right. But the girl he cherished being bullied made this usually calm man feel shaken for the first time. "I want to tell you something, The appearance of her grandfather interrupted the captain. Whether he truly wanted to confess his feelings or just to comfort, perhaps only Jean knew. Because two friends were coming to stay temporarily, the captain was concerned about disturbing Jean and everyone, so he arranged for them to stay in the room outside. Although they were comrades, the views of the two sides were completely different. The captain respected peace, hoping to preserve enough dignity for the French people, not the insults from a victor. For this, they argued ceaselessly in the room. Jean and her grandfather heard it, but could hardly help them worry less. "What should I do? Who can answer me?" Looking at the helpless and confused captain, Jean's heartache was evident. Jean's grandfather also looked directly at the captain for the first time, his eyes showing respect, but not knowing what to say to comfort him. That night, Jean went to the window and saw someone stealthily placing a bomb under the captain's car. Fear and unease washed over her. Instinctive worry made her rush to the second floor, to the front of the captain's room. But after hesitating many times, in the end she still did not knock. On one side were her anti-fascist compatriots for the motherland. On the other was the man she loved with whom she had the enmity of nation and family. She could not make a decision. Tormented, Jean kept watch by the window all night. It was not until she was awakened by voices that she hurriedly stood up, her eyes trying to find the captain's figure. Those bright eyes were now filled with anxiety and struggle, and the footsteps behind her made her nerves stretch to the limit. She had to make a choice. Therefore, at the moment the captain was about to open the door to go outside, the long unheard sound of the piano rang out. The music was urgent, the notes hurried and fast. It was not until she saw the familiar figure in the corner of her eye that the tempo slowed slightly. A piece had just ended. Jean looked towards the captain, wanting to speak but remaining silent. And just at the moment the captain was puzzled, in the German military vehicle, someone turned the key and a loud explosion rang out. After a long time, the captain slowly turned his head. After seeing that calm face, he immediately understood everything. He rushed out of the room. His comrade was already dead. Separated by the blazing fire, they looked at each other, only feeling that the other was getting farther and farther away. The German army began to vigorously hunt down the French resistance. All suspicious people, including Jean's neighbors, the parents of that little boy, did not escape the disaster. And Jean and her grandfather, the most suspicious ones, coincidentally escaped the calamity. Jean wanted to plead for her neighbors. So in the chaotic crowd of the protest, the captain caught a glimpse of the familiar figure. He knew why she had come, but could do nothing more. Both were patriots. They each had their own responsibilities and duties. That night, the captain carried his luggage down the stairs, stood at the door for a long time, never knowing how to say goodbye. And just as he was about to leave in silence, "Please come in, sir." The doorway was empty, a long silence. When he appeared again, the captain's eyes, which had originally held a look of loneliness, were now covered with a layer of surprise and joy. He knew he had been accepted by them. I am leaving. He looked into her no longer avoiding eyes, telling her he was going to the front, a hell with temperatures of -40 degrees, a true battlefield. I will be on my way tonight. Good night to you both. Goodbye. A tear fell silently. Jean naturally understood this separation meant farewell forever. The battlefield was almost certain death. Perhaps his departure was also to save her and her grandfather, a great price to pay. Because how could a man who worshipped peace want to step onto a cruel battlefield? The intense longing was like a fierce wind on a calm sea, suddenly stirring up violent waves. Faced with this love separated by war, Jean's breathing became more and more rapid. She stood silently in front of the car. He also got out of the car, standing beside her. Eye to eye, the love and tenderness suppressed in their hearts finally broke through like a collapsed dike, flowing from the eyes of both. Goodbye. The captain said nothing. In the face of this love and a cruel war, he could only use a faint smile to embrace the girl before him with tear-filled eyes, the girl who had moved his heart at first sight. She remained standing in the same spot. The car slowly started, carrying her prayers, love, and longing, disappearing into the dust. War is so cruel, it can always destroy beautiful things, directly annihilating them before your eyes. Whether it is love or life, in the end, they all become fragile victims. And what we can do is only to bear the responsibilities and duties on each person's wheel of fate, either raising the sail on the mast or steering the rudder in hand, then quietly waiting for the fleeting encounters. The only goodbye, she said to him, in French has the hidden meaning of farewell forever. Perhaps in this life, they can hardly meet again. And we, who are born in an era of peace, still have many opportunities to meet again. Time is still long. We must certainly cherish every encounter, cherish our current life, and cherish the hard-won era of peace.